Hey, we're recording this on what day is it? It's Thursday, September 18th. Hope to get back to the book. Did a little bit of work on it yesterday, but just so much stuff's not being reported about this Kirk thing. It's mind-boggling. Okay, autopsy, autopsy. When people are killed violently, there needs to be an autopsy. The autopsy has to be done, if possible, within 24 hours so you don't have tissue degradation. Okay, so where's the autopsy? Has it been done? Notice the news isn't talking about that at all. Everybody's talking about everything in the world except the most fundamental thing in this case, autopsy. They're going to need it for evidence, right? They got the rifle, they got the bullets engraved, they got the blanket, they got sketchy photographs, they got the testimony of a lunatic, but they don't have any information about whether an autopsy was done or not. And where are those results? Because you have to find the bullet. Right? And I just want to repeat to everybody, entry wounds are smaller than exit wounds. And I'm going to say it again because this seems to be hard for not everybody, but some people. The entry wound is very tiny. The exit wound is very big. If what you saw on Kirk's neck was the entry wound, then the exit wound had to be massive. I also recommend that you go to YouTube, maybe we'll throw it up here, and see what happens when they say it was a 30-06 bullet. We've had all these grizzled old hunters. Yeah, I could have made that shot when I was 12 years old. Have they told you what that kind of a bullet would do to a neck of a human being? Okay. So I don't know, but I don't think that was the bullet. It would have done way more damage. And there's something wrong with the fact that the autopsy hasn't come out. There are coroners, there are trauma surgeons with expertise in gunshot wounds, there are ballistic experts. All of these people can confirm everything I'm saying, and yet nobody's asking them a question. What they are doing is they're going to the grizzled old deer hunter and asking, could you have made that shot, Grandpa? Yeah. Anyway, absurd, absurd. Hi, this is Brass Check, and we're recording this on Wednesday, September 17th. We just dropped a big video today, and of course, I just can't stop looking at this. I think this is the last message I'm going to give you. Just to do a recap, really important. Um, Two things that just aren't being discussed. You cannot, there's no way to have shot Charlie Kirk the way he was shot from the building they say the guy who was arrested was in. It's impossible. We've made videos on that. If they would actually talk to a coroner or a trauma surgeon or a ballistics expert, they will tell you right away. By the way, has anybody heard about an autopsy? I haven't. Have they found the bullet? I haven't heard about it. There's so many things they haven't done or they haven't mentioned. Doesn't take that long to determine what kind of a bullet is, or guess, by the way. There is no way to know. Once that lead goes flying, it's not so clear exactly what the caliber is. Look it up. Speaking of caliber, very, 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 very important, and this is being missed by 99.999%. Um, Entry wounds are small, exit wounds are large. So where you saw Charlie Kirk bleeding from the neck, that was an exit wound, exit wound. Entry wounds are tiny and can be even invisible, depends on the round. Look it up. This is not a matter of contention. This is, building seven kind of stuff. Right. So we got that. So, not an amateur, not a lucky shot, planned. Let's look at the inside job nature of this. He and a adult, a very seemingly experienced business person started the group Turnaround USA. They started it the day after Charlie Kirk graduated from high school. So let that sink in for a second. Do you remember where you were the day after you graduated from high school? You probably needed some adult supervision. Well, he got it. And then 4 years later, he got a master class in political campaigning. Did you know that he was the personal assistant to Donald Trump Jr. during the 2016 campaign? Who was running the show while he was working full? Campaigns are a big job. Who was running the show while he was helping Donald Jr.? Um, well, obviously the founder. And this founder is a shady, mysterious character. Good luck finding anything about him. You can find out the different companies he helped work with and all that kind of stuff, but you really don't know where he was coming from. But one of the places he was coming from, just real quick, this is something I've talked about before. I think I broke the story on this. I don't know why it was so hard to break, but this is an organization that brings in over $80 million a year. And the first place you heard about that anywhere was me telling Sabby Sab's audience way back Sunday. Okay, nobody was talking about that. Um, and it has over 600 employees. All right. So this is a very, very serious operation. So to look at Charlie Kirk and say, oh, this is Charlie Kirk's organization is tomfoolery. It's not correct. It's not insightful. It's not intelligent. He was the talent, the front man, the star. And the business was built around his star quality. And clearly the dude had a lot of star quality. Um, So there was a whole cast of characters in the background. And, I'll use the rock star analogy. The rock star has roadies. Let's say, especially these days, right? It's not just two speakers, right? It's like, a team of who knows how many people to set up the gear, break it down, ship it to the next town. That's a bunch of people. Then you have the managers and the accountants and the marketing people, the promotion people. Um, uh, you know, it's a lot. It's not five people. You ever see a movie at the end of the movie and you look at, oh, that's a pretty good, it's sometimes even a documentary. Oh, that's a pretty good documentary. And then the credits come and there's like 200 people for a movie that maybe you could have shot with your your iPhone and edited it yourself. But anyway, when you are the talent, you don't know all that's going on in the background. You are very easy to manipulate. And so I believe, and the money, where did that $80 million a year come from? Anonymous donations, bottom line. Some people were above board, but most of that money came in anonymously. So we don't know where it came from. So the idea that he was promised money by Netanyahu and all this kind of stuff may be true, may not be true, sort of in the level of hearsay, not worth a headline about. The real headline is that it was an $80 million a year organization. And you heard it here first, and nobody else. I think one other guy finally started talking about it. Do some math, guys, do some arithmetic. It's not so hard. I'm talking to the journalists out there. Um, so big, big enterprise. We also talked about a guy whose name I do not have on the tip of my tongue. First name Andrew, last name God knows what. Who was the executive producer of the show? This guy is sketchy as hell. He has a biography, a self-proclaimed biography that literally makes no sense and is completely vague on very important details. He is also obviously Mr. Israel on the team. So, which brings us to this point. The Zionists have been completely infiltrated turnaround USA from the day it started to look like it was going to be something. They immediately attached at least one guy to it, and they probably attached many guys to it. And by the way, I would look heavily into that executive director, heavily. Um, and so they've been steering the ship all along. Now, Charlie Kirk, they took him on the trip to Israel and they told him this is where the Holy Land it was, and this is the Holy Land, and no other land is holy. And the Zionists are the great protectors of the holy sites. Well, gee, Charlie, there are Christian churches in Palestine that do a pretty good job of taking care of the holy Christian sites. Oh, and by the way, the Muslims consider Jesus a prophet and they don't mess with his sites. In fact, they revere them. So that ship has been sheared for sure, but also steered by the Zionists because they have to keep control of the young people, and they definitely have to keep control over idealistic, activist-minded young Christian people. And Charlie was their ticket. And as I mentioned, this is not a podcaster. This is a dude that can show up He can declare a tour, and every city he goes to, there's thousands of people that come out. That place where he was murdered happened to be the first leg of the tour. Now we know that Bill Ackman, the pseudo hedge fund manager who's wrong far more than he's right, and a lot of people in the financial industry can't figure out where he gets his money from. Doesn't that sound familiar? Um, he's the one that led the battle against Columbia University. How dare you allow people protest genocide? It's anti-Semitic. Um, big force in the Zionist extremist genocide movement. Um, he held a little private, meeting for 2 days at his, 50-room mansion or whatever it is in Long Island, and all the hardcore Zionists and some of the Christian Zionists were invited, and Charlie Kirk was invited, and they put pressure on him to stop talking negatively about the genocide. Just don't talk about it, Charlie. Just stop talking about it. And of course, he didn't stop. Like he got on Megyn Kelly's show the day after this event and kind of complained about being leaned on. Yeah. And then a guy whose name I can't remember, some crazy name, Lick Me or something. I don't know. Was Licky or something? Lick Me? I don't know what it was. He is the head of Israel 365, and his job is to go and liaison with all the Christian Zionists and keep them on track. So the day before they, whoever they is, killed Kirk, Kirk had an hour-long meeting with this dude. Okay, and my estimate, which I presented in yesterday's video, we're going to get to the new stuff shortly, is that that was Charlie's last chance. Tour was kicking off, and they were not going to allow him to even have one public gathering where he's not talking favorably about the genocide, right? So he was a very valuable asset to them. It's like if you have a racehorse, you don't want to shoot your racehorse. Um, but when the racehorse goes bad, uh, in the old days, they used to shoot them, they weren't very kind to horses. And that's, I think, what happened here. And I think that the problem in quotes, and this is the same problem for JFK. I'm not equating the two, Charlie Kirk and JFK, but you have little kids at home, and if you don't have little kids at home, or you don't have, if you have a heart, you don't need to have little kids to tell you, to show you what life is. But even if you're a little obtuse and a little thick-headed, and suddenly you've got little kids at home, you suddenly realize, oh my God, these kids are precious, and everybody's kids are precious, and killing kids is the worst thing in the world. Killing or injuring kids, the worst thing in the world you could do. And so he had that tension, and it was coming out in a lot of things. And he went to Ackman's house out there in Long Island, where they leaned on him for 2 days. He blew them off pretty hard, especially when he got on the Megyn Kelly show and sort of backhandedly denounced them. He didn't talk about the meeting, but now we know that meeting took place. And then he got a chance from this guy Lick Me, or whatever his name was, Rabbi Lick Me, um, and that was his last chance. And because again, they could not allow this dude to have one to start a tour. Like let's say this. So that was the first meeting of the tour, right? Let's say at that event he went off against the genocide. Okay, if they killed him on the second, uh, stop, it looks bad, right? It looks less bad if he's killed before he can even start talking. Okay, so let's rewind something here. My guess is I mean, you have got to understand there's rooms full of people making sure all this propaganda is on track. And one of their key assets, Charlie Kirk. And so years ago, because this has been going on for a while, when he starts making comments about Israel, the radar blipped, right? And they now have a problem, and they're now watching him really carefully, and they're, trying to talk sense into that boy, and it's not working. And that's when the plan went in. Okay, it's like, hey, we got to stop this. He's going to be on tour. Now here's the logic. This is how it went down. I will bet money on it. He's going to be on tour. Okay. And this is where the inside job comes in. And we need to know everything about everybody that works at Turnaround USA. Planning a tour is complicated, correct? I mean, bring it down to everyday life. Let's say
You're going to do a multi-city vacation. You're going to fly to New York. You're going to spend some days there. Then you're going to fly to Boston. You're going to spend some days there. Then you're going to fly to Toronto and you're going to spend some days there. I mean, this is complicated, right? Well, these tours are 1,000 times more complicated, right? Because you're going to have audiences everywhere. So somebody, here's the key: somebody had to plan the tour, right? And when you plan a tour, what do you do? First stop, second stop, third stop, fourth stop, fifth stop. If you knew that Charlie Clark was on the edge, and you're trying to talk him back, but again, he's not. Oh, I can't think of the woman's name. Candace Owens. When Candace Owens went off the reservation, she's got a podcast, 2 million visitors. Who cares? This was a guy that had, like the claim was, 3,500 chapters of live human beings on campuses, high school and college, all over the United States. When he goes out to speak, thousands of people show up. Okay, this is a big deal. This man is not allowed to have an opinion of any kind other than the uber alles opinion. So once it was clear that he was going to be a problem, they put in a plan to kill him. They allegedly put in a plan, and you'll see the logistics because everything's logistics. You can't fly to the moon, with a paper airplane. And I used to tell people before they did the insane thing of trying to invade Afghanistan, is you can't invade Afghanistan in a pickup truck, which is basically what they did, which was um, a recipe for the slaughter of countless American servicemen and contractors. Anyway, back to logistics of this. So there's going to be a tour, and somebody's going to plan that tour, right? First town, second town, third town, fourth town. Somebody decided that the first place for him to start was Orem, Utah. Okay. Now, just by coincidence, that Orem, Utah site, perfect place. In fact, I'm sure they looked at all the different places that Charlie could go to, right? They were sitting around a table and they're looking at, oh, let's see, here's this place, here's, this town, that town, here's Orem. Ooh, that looks interesting. Depressed area, buildings everywhere, tight courtyard, massive panic when the shot goes off. Hmm, I like that. Let's go with that. Okay, Jack or Jill or whoever was planning the tour, make that the first stop on the tour. Why? Because if you can't now, if I have a feeling if Charlie Kirk had said to Rabbi Lickme or whatever his name is, yeah, you're right, I'm going to back off. I think Charlie Kirk would be alive today, allegedly. I allegedly think that. Um, and I think that was his last chance. And so the plan that they had in place, because they got they being people who plan and have resources have dozens of plans in place, hundreds of plans in place. Only a small fraction of them go off. Did you know that? It's not like we're seeing everything they have up their sleeve. This was a case where everything lined up. I mean, it could have not lined up, right? And they might have just had to pass on this one and figure it out somewhere else. Remember when they were trying to kill JFK, there were three places, I think it was Miami and Chicago, where everything was lined up to shoot him from a high range tower, a high whatever, high level building, multi-story building. And interesting, I think in one of the cases the guy was a Marine, you know. I forget where it was in Miami, but they had three different things, and they just they fell through. They didn't work out. So Dallas worked out the best. And Chicago completely corrupt, Miami, completely CIA ridden city, Dallas completely corrupt. So the same thing with this tour, and they made the very first stop the easiest place to kill him because they didn't want him to get started with his talking. So that is my opinion of how this happened, and or one of the highly potential things. And as I pointed out earlier, all crimes have to have uh, means, motive, and opportunity, right? You really think the angry trans community can arrange this kind of a sophisticated assassination? And it was sophisticated because the guy on the roof was a distraction. and the real shot came from the other direction. That's and it was a good shot. That's sophistication. You don't need to know anything more. So how many people are that sophisticated? Um, Not many. And how many people are just going to, walk away from it and not have to think twice? Not many. And here we have to get into, and I got to go. We got to talk about the relationship between the CIA and Mossad. How about this? No difference between them. Mossad was created by the CIA, right? We've talked about this, James Jesus Angleton. We've gone on. That's why we go on and on and on about it. Okay, so they help each other out, and this Bennett, by the way, Bennett, obviously the U.S. wants to kill every Palestinian. It's clear. Otherwise, they would stop helping. So I don't know if I've talked to you about the big gas plant that's going to be announced in 3 or 4 years, or maybe just two, maybe just one. A year after all the last Palestinians dead, they're going to announce these grand construction plans. This benefits U.S. bankers. It benefits U.S. contractors, U.S. oil company, U.S. Energy companies. Benefits plan to supercharge Israel so that Israel rules the entire Middle East as our partner. It's so obvious. It's so obvious what's really going to go on there. Um, but no one's talking about it. I mean, nobody. Maybe somebody. Maybe you can find somebody that's mentioning. It's getting pretty obvious what they're doing. They're leveling the place. They're not just taking, blowing up buildings. They're leveling it. Well, they're leveling it for a reason. But in any event, time for me to get going. This may be my last message on this. I don't know what else there is to say. But just think this through. We know the shot didn't come from where they say it did. That means this was a highly sophisticated operation. The shot was excellent. It was done by somebody who concealed themselves brilliantly. We know the FBI's in on it because they're helping. Probably the CIA's in on it. We know that Israel is the land of the sniper. They got way more. They have. I mean, I don't know how many snipers we fielded in Iraq and uh, um, Afghanistan, but Israelis have plenty. And the different. And here's the thing. This goes back to 9/11. Somebody had to wire those buildings physically. Somebody had to do it. It's all well and good to say, "Oh, controlled demolition." Yeah. Let's wake up, guys. It's 25 years later. Let's start talking about details. Who did it? Who wired them? Okay. So my feeling is you ain't getting any American to wire an American building to kill Americans. There are some sick Americans out there, but there aren't that many, unless you put them all on a plane afterwards and crash the plane. Um, then you don't have to worry about them. But but who would happily wire that building and have not only have a clear conscience, but feel that they'd done a gift to service to humanity and to the Zionist cause? Well, half a gazillion Zionist demolition experts, of which they have many, which is obvious just by watching what's going on in Gaza. But they've been very good at high level demolitions forever. So they've got so that's the means. That's the means. And what shooter are you going to get to kill a young man, kind of squeaky clean, apparently, in appearances at least, young man, young family, doing positive things, talking on behalf of America? What American are you going to get to take that shot? How many Israelis would take that shot? I mean, you could fill a football stadium with probably you could probably well, I don't know if you could fit, but you could fit a whole bunch of you could fill a very, very, very large space with trained snipers who could have made that shot, um, who wouldn't lose a night's sleep about killing a young, positive American. And they would be Zionists because Charlie Kirk is a threat to our survival. Do you see how this works? But we have to look at the inside job. Whoever planned that tour, whoever had influence on planning that tour, whoever hired, by the way, his good security company was fired in 2022, and we don't know who the security company has been since then. I'm almost going to guarantee what country they have ties to. The security was trash, and the location was very dangerous, and they didn't take risk mitigation, not even the most basic risk mitigation. We pointed that out in a photograph. There was nobody looking to the left and right of that tent. Everybody's looking straight out. I mean, My God, how stupid do you have to be? Even bouncers at a nightclub are smarter than that, you know? But everyone's looking out into the crowd, but not to the crowd that's to the side that Charlie got shot from. Oh, big mistake. Sorry. So there's somebody inside Turning Point USA who was given the word, hey, start him in a, we found a good location for this. Start him out in Orem, Utah, and we'll take care of the rest. It's brass check. And I got to get back to my other book, man.
Devastating new investigation by Dutch newspaper De Volkskrant. 15 international doctors report that at least 114 Palestinian children with single gunshot wounds to the head and chest. Injuries, forensic experts say, are consistent with aimed fire. So they did a detailed, deep dive investigation, and they found 15 doctors are now risking everything to come forward and say, we have 114 specific examples of Palestinian kids being shot in the head.